I'm Hazel Matthews, 29 years old, and I'll never forget last Thanksgiving. Seated at my parents' mahogany table, I watched their faces light up as they announced they were giving Aubrey a down payment for her dream house. When I questioned why, Mom's words cut deep. "Your sister deserves it." 29 years of being overlooked crystallized in that moment. Dad nodded in agreement while Aubrey smirked. Something inside me snapped. I stood up abruptly, my wine glass toppling over, crimson liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like my rage. Without a word, I walked out. Before I dive deeper into this story, where are you watching from today? If my family drama already sounds familiar, hit that like button and subscribe to join our little community of survivors. Trust me, what happened after I walked out that door changed everything, and I can't wait to share it with you. The drive home from my parents' house that Thanksgiving night was a blur. Tears streamed down my face as I navigated the familiar streets of my hometown, the radio playing some cheerful holiday tune that felt like mockery. This wasn't a one-time slight. This was the continuation of a pattern that had defined my entire life. Growing up, Aubrey always got the shiny new things. I still remember her twirling in her brand new pink party dress for her 6th birthday, while I wore a hand-me-down that had once been hers. "It's still perfectly good," Mom had said when I asked why I couldn't have a new dress too. "We need to save for Aubrey's ballet lessons." Ah, the ballet lessons. Those became the center of our family universe. Aubrey was deemed gifted by her instructor when she was 7. And from then on, everything revolved around her potential dance career. Weekends were consumed by recitals and competitions. My parents never missed a single one, applauding wildly as my sister pirouetted across stages in expensive costumes. Meanwhile, I discovered I had a knack for mathematics and science. I joined the debate team and the academic decathlon. I won regional competitions and qualified for state-level events. More often than not, my parents couldn't attend. "Someone has to take Aubrey to her rehearsal," they'd explain. I'd see the photos later, my sister in the studio, my father holding her dance bag, my mother adjusting her hair. When it came time for college, the disparity became even more pronounced. "We've been saving for Aubrey's education," my father announced during my senior year of high school. "Ballet schools are expensive." "What about my college fund?" I asked. The uncomfortable silence told me everything I needed to know. There wasn't one. I cobbled together scholarships, took out loans, and worked part-time jobs throughout my undergraduate years studying finance. I ate ramen noodles and shared a cramped apartment with 3 other students. Meanwhile, Aubrey attended a prestigious performing arts school in New York, living in a private apartment my parents rented for her. The ballet career never materialized. By her junior year, Aubrey had decided dancing was too demanding and switched to communications. My parents never asked for the tuition money back or suggested she get a job. Instead, they funded her semester abroad in Paris, where she discovered her passion for social media. As I pulled into my apartment complex, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "You really overreacted at dinner. You know how hard Aubrey works on her social media presence. This house will give her the perfect backdrop for her content." I turned off my phone without responding and sat in my car, the engine cooling in the November chill. Something inside me had finally broken. The years of unfair treatment, of being overlooked and expected to fend for myself while my sister was coddled, it all came crashing down on me at once. This was the final straw. I couldn't change my parents' behavior, but I could change my reaction to it. From now on, I would put myself first. If my family couldn't see my worth, I would have to be the one to recognize it. And here we were years later, with me working as a financial advisor at a small firm, living in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, still paying off student loans. Meanwhile, Aubrey had become a self-proclaimed Instagram influencer, with a mediocre following, still receiving monthly deposits from our parents to support her brand building. "Hazel, I've been watching your work with the Pritchard account," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "You've got good instincts. We're considering you for the junior partner position opening up next quarter." My heart skipped a beat. Junior partner would mean a substantial salary increase, more prestigious clients, and a private office instead of the cubicle I'd occupied for the past 3 years. It was exactly the kind of recognition I'd been working toward. "That's incredible news," I said, trying to maintain professional composure despite my excitement. "Thank you for considering me." "Nothing's decided yet," James cautioned. But keep up the good work, especially with the year-end portfolio reviews coming up. I practically floated back to my desk. Despite the lingering hurt from Thanksgiving, I wanted to share my potential good fortune with my family. Maybe this would be something they could finally be proud of. I called my parents that evening, hoping to rebuild bridges while sharing my exciting career development. "Hi, Mom, I have some good news," I said, when she answered. "Oh, Hazel, can I call you back? We're just heading out the door." Aubrey found the perfect furniture for her new place, and we're meeting her at the store to help her decide. "It'll just take a minute," I pressed. "Work is going really well, and I might be up for junior partner." "That's nice, honey," she said, distraction evident in her voice. "Listen, I need to run. Oh, before I forget, we're throwing a housewarming party for Aubrey next Saturday." "You'll be there, right? It would mean a lot to your sister." The conversation ended before I could respond further about my potential promotion. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, wondering why I'd expected anything different. Against my better judgment, I attended Aubrey's housewarming party the following weekend. The house was in an upscale neighborhood with high ceilings and hardwood floors, far nicer than anything I could afford on my salary. My parents had outdone themselves with catering decorations and even hired a bartender for the evening. I mingled awkwardly with Aubrey's friends, mostly aspiring influencers and creative types who seemed to subsist on mysterious income sources and parental support. I overheard snippets of conversations about brand deals and follower counts, feeling increasingly out of place in my sensible work clothes. As I refilled my wine glass at the bar, I caught a fragment of conversation from the adjacent dining room where Aubrey was holding court. "Poor Hazel has always been jealous of me," my sister was saying to her audience. "I think that's why she's so uptight about money. She resents that I've found success doing what I love, while she's stuck in some boring office job." I froze, glass in hand, as the group laughed sympathetically. "It's not my fault our parents understand that creative careers need nurturing," Aubrey continued. "Financial advice is so ordinary. Anyone could do that." I set down my untouched wine and marched into the dining room. The conversation halted as I approached. "Can we talk?" I asked Aubrey, keeping my voice level, despite my racing heart. "Privately." She flashed a bright smile at her friends. "Sister stuff. Be right back." Once we were alone in the kitchen, I confronted her. "Success. You call living in a house our parents bought you success?" "Don't start this again," Hazel, Aubrey sighed, checking her reflection in the microwave door. "It's not my fault they want to support my career." "What career? You post pictures of yourself drinking coffee and wearing free clothes from brands no one has heard of." "I have 15,000 followers," she snapped, her calm facade cracking. "Do you know how hard it is to build an authentic personal brand? Do you know how hard it is to put yourself through college while working part-time jobs?" I countered. "Or to earn a promotion based on actual results rather than parental handouts?" Aubrey's expression changed, a calculating look replacing her indignation. "They help me because I need it. You've always been so capable, so independent. That's not a reason to ignore one child while spoiling another." "They're not ignoring you," Aubrey said with a dismissive wave. "They're just giving me what I need to succeed. Besides," her voice lowered, "I might have told them you're doing really well financially. That you don't need their help." My blood ran cold. "You did what?" "They were talking about helping with your student loans last year, but I mentioned how you're always saying your financial planning expertise is paying off. That you're on track for big things at your firm." She shrugged. "I didn't want them to worry about you when I needed help with my influencer startup costs." Before I could respond to this revelation, the kitchen door swung open. My parents entered, concern etched on their faces. "Everything okay in here?" my father asked. "Your friends are asking for you, Aubrey." "Hazel's just giving me financial advice," my sister replied, smoothly shooting me a warning glance. "Don't lecture your sister tonight, Hazel," my mother said. "This is her celebration. Lecture her. She just admitted to deliberately misleading you about my financial situation, so you'd give her more money instead of helping me with my student loans." My parents exchanged glances. "I'm sure she didn't mean it like that," my father said uncomfortably. "Aubrey's establishing her career," my mother added defensively. "These early years are crucial for building her platform." "And my career doesn't matter?" I asked incredulously. "You've always been the practical one," my mother said, as if this explained everything. "Aubrey is different." Aubrey smiled triumphantly behind our parents' backs. In that moment, I saw the truth clearly. This wasn't just about my parents' favoritism. My own sister had actively worked to ensure I remained an afterthought in our family. "I need to go," I said quietly, gathering my purse from the counter. "Don't be dramatic, Hazel," my father called after me as I headed for the door. I left without another word, humiliation burning in my chest. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Not only had my parents consistently prioritized Aubrey, but my sister had deliberately sabotaged any support that might have come my way. As I drove home for the second time in 2 weeks with tears streaming down my face, I made a resolution I would never again look to my family for validation or support. From now on, I would build my own success, and they would no longer be a part of it. The Monday after Aubrey's housewarming party, I arrived at work with a new sense of purpose. If my family wouldn't appreciate my efforts, I would channel my energy into building a life they couldn't ignore, not to win their approval, but to prove to myself what I was capable of achieving. I threw myself into my work with renewed focus. Early mornings, late nights, weekends, I dedicated every spare moment to expanding my knowledge and improving my client relationships. I read industry publications, took additional certification courses, and volunteered for challenging assignments others avoided. My dedication caught the attention of Beverly Carter, one of the senior financial advisors at the firm. In her mid-50s, with sleek silver hair and impeccable tailored suits, Beverly had built an impressive client roster over her 20-year career. She was known for her sharp insight and unwavering standards. One evening, as I was reviewing portfolio performances well past regular hours, Beverly stopped by my cubicle. "You're here late again, Hazel," she observed, leaning against the partition. "Just finishing up some analysis for the Henderson account," I explained. Beverly studied me thoughtfully. "I've been watching you these past few weeks. You've shifted into another gear." I straightened in my chair. "I'm committed to earning that junior partner position." "Commitment is good," she nodded, "but burnout is real." "What's driving this sudden intensity?" Something about her direct approach and genuine interest broke through my professional veneer. Before I knew it, I was sharing the basics of my family situation, the lifelong favoritism, the Thanksgiving dinner revelation, and my sister's betrayal. Instead of offering platitudes, Beverly pulled up a chair. "Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me 30 years ago," she said, her voice dropping confidentially. "I grew up with 2 brothers who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Every achievement of mine was met with, 'That's nice, dear,' while my brothers got parties for passing grades." I listened, surprised to find such a similar story from someone I admired. "I spent years trying to win their approval," Beverly continued. "Wasted energy that could have gone into building my own happiness. Eventually, I realized something crucial: success is the best revenge, but only if you define success on your own terms." "How did you do it?" I asked. "I focused on what I genuinely enjoyed about finance, helping people secure their futures rather than just chasing titles to impress my family. And I found mentors and created a chosen family who supported my goals." She smiled. "Which brings me to why I stopped by. I have a client who might be perfect for you to work with." The client was Joseph Walker, a real estate investor who had recently sold several commercial properties and needed guidance on reinvesting the capital. Beverly explained that while he was one of her clients, his new project required specialized attention she couldn't provide with her current workload. "He's demanding but fair," she warned. "If you impress him, it could significantly boost your portfolio and your partnership prospects." Over the following weeks, I worked diligently with Joseph Walker, a shrewd man in his early 60s with decades of experience in property development. He tested me with difficult questions and scenarios but seemed pleased with my thorough, candid recommendations. After successfully helping him restructure his investment approach, Joseph invited me to lunch. "You've got good instincts, Hazel," he said as we reviewed the performance projections. "Ever considered investing in real estate yourself?" "Not seriously," I admitted. "My current focus is building my client base." Joseph nodded thoughtfully. "Diversification is key in any portfolio, including career assets. I'm starting a new development project, mixed-use property in the revitalizing downtown district. Small investors welcome." He slid a prospectus across the table. The minimum investment was substantial, nearly all of my modest savings, but the projected returns were impressive. "Take some time to review it," Joseph said. "Do your due diligence. But don't wait too long. We break ground next month." That evening, I carefully examined every detail of the investment opportunity. The risk was significant, but so was the potential reward. After 3 days of analysis and consideration, I decided to take the plunge. If I wanted different results in my life, I needed to make different choices. 6 months later, that calculated risk paid off. The development project progressed ahead of schedule, and early leasing interest drove up the property valuation. My initial investment had already appreciated by 30% on paper, with further gains projected. Beverly was the first person I told about my successful investment. Her response was both congratulatory and practical. "Well done," she said. "Now leverage this experience. Start building your own client portfolio with a specialty in investment property opportunities. That's how you create a niche that makes you indispensable to the firm." Following her advice, I began carefully cultivating relationships with clients interested in real estate investments. My first-hand experience with Joseph's project gave me credibility, and my thorough approach earned trust. Within months, I had established myself as the go-to advisor for this specialized area. My growing success at work provided a healing counterbalance to the family situation I'd emotionally distanced myself from. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Aubrey since the housewarming party, though my mother occasionally sent texts that I responded to politely but briefly. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my father's name appeared on my office phone display. I hesitated before answering, my stomach tightening with apprehension. "Hazel," my father's voice sounded unusually subdued. "I was hoping we could meet for dinner. I need some financial advice, and you're the expert in the family." The irony of him seeking my expertise after years of dismissing my career wasn't lost on me. Yet beneath my skepticism, a small part of me hoped this might be the beginning of genuine recognition. "I could do Thursday evening," I offered cautiously. "Perfect. Your mother will be pleased. We've missed you." As I hung up, I wondered if this unexpected outreach was a sincere attempt at reconciliation, or if once again my family needed something from me that would ultimately benefit Aubrey. Either way, I was no longer the desperate for approval daughter they remembered. I was becoming a woman in control of her own destiny. I selected the restaurant for dinner with my parents, a mid-range steakhouse, downtown, professional but not ostentatious. I arrived early, choosing a corner table that offered privacy while allowing me to watch the entrance. When my parents walked in, I noticed immediately that they seemed tense. My mother's smile was strained, and my father's shoulders hunched forward slightly as if bearing an invisible weight. "Hazel, you look wonderful," my mother said, embracing me. "That suit is very professional." "Thank you," I replied, accepting her hug without returning the same enthusiasm. "You both look well." We exchanged polite small talk about the weather and the restaurant as we settled into our seats and ordered drinks. My father seemed particularly interested in my water, with lemon avoiding his usual scotch. So I said, after our server had taken our food orders, "Dad mentioned you wanted some financial advice." My parents exchanged glances, a familiar, silent communication that had always excluded me. "Yes," my father began, clearing his throat. "We're thinking about our retirement planning. We want to make sure we're on the right track." I nodded, slipping into my professional mode. "When are you hoping to retire, and what kind of lifestyle are you envisioning?" "Well, that's part of what we wanted to discuss," my mother interjected. "Your father is considering reducing his hours at the dental practice next year." This was news to me. "I didn't realize you were thinking about scaling back so soon." "It's been 40 years, my father said. "I'm tired, Hazel." I spent the next several minutes asking standard questions about their current investments, savings, and expected expenses. Their answers were vague and occasionally contradictory. Something wasn't adding up. "Could you bring any recent investment statements to my office?" I suggested. "That would give me a clearer picture of—" "Actually, there's something specific we wanted to talk about," my father interrupted, his voice dropping. "It's about Aubrey." Of course it was. I should have known. "What about her?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral despite the disappointment settling in my chest. My mother leaned forward. "Her influencer business is having some challenges. The algorithm changes have affected her engagement rates, and some of her brand partnerships haven't renewed." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though I wasn't surprised. Aubrey's social media presence had always seemed more about lifestyle photos than genuine content or business strategy. "We've been helping her financially," my father continued. "More than we probably should have." "We heard from Beverly Carter that you've been doing very well," my mother added quickly. "That real estate investment you made has been quite successful." Eyes stiffened. You've been talking to Beverly about my finances. She's an old friend of your Aunt Susan's, my mother explained dismissively. We ran into her at the country club last month. She mentioned how impressed she's been with your work. The realization that my parents had been gathering intelligence on my financial situation sent a chill through me. What exactly are you asking me? I said, though I already knew the answer. My father sighed heavily. Aubrey needs investors for her rebrand. She's pivoting to wellness content, and she needs proper equipment, a website redesign, and marketing support. We thought, since you've had such good results with your investment, my mother added, you might consider helping your sister. Family, supporting family. I sat back in my chair, momentarily speechless. After years of favoring Aubrey and minimizing my accomplishments, they now wanted me to use my hard-earned success to bail out my sister's failing Instagram career. How much have you already given her? I asked quietly. My parents exchanged another look. We've had to take out a second mortgage, my father admitted. And we've been using our retirement savings. You've been jeopardizing your retirement to fund Aubrey's social media presence. I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. You don't understand, my mother said defensively. Aubrey is sensitive. She's an artist. She's not like you. She can't just work in an office and be content. She needs to express herself. And I don't, I challenged. Or is it that you've always seen her as worthy of support and me as, what? Self-sufficient, less needing. We've always known you could take care of yourself, Hazel, my father said, as if this were a compliment. You've been strong since you were little. Aubrey is more fragile. So I was punished for my independence while Aubrey was rewarded for her dependency, I summarized bitterly. That's not fair, my mother protested. No, it's not fair, I agreed. None of this has ever been fair. Will you help her or not? My father asked bluntly. I took a deep breath. No. I won't invest in Aubrey's business. Not because I don't have the means, but because it would be a poor investment decision. If you came to me as a client with this proposal, I would advise strongly against it. After everything we've done for you, my mother said, her voice trembling with indignation. I laughed without humor. What exactly have you done for me? You didn't pay for my education. You've never supported my career. You've consistently prioritized Aubrey's wants over my needs. We raised you, my father said stiffly. We put a roof over your head. You did the legal minimum required of parents, I acknowledged. And I'm grateful for that basic provision. But don't pretend you've supported me the way you've supported Aubrey. Your success is just luck, my father said, his frustration evident. Aubrey has real talent. She just needs a chance to prove it. His words struck me like a physical blow. After everything I'd worked for, after all the nights studying instead of partying the loans I'd paid off through diligence, the expertise I'd built through constant learning, he attributed it all to luck. This dinner is over, I said quietly, placing my napkin on the table and signaling for the check. I won't be investing in Aubrey's business, and I suggest you both stop doing so as well. At your age, depleting retirement savings is dangerous. You've become cold, Hazel, my mother said, tears in her eyes. Success has changed you. No, I corrected her as I signed the bill. I've always been this person. You just never took the time to know me. I left them sitting at the table, my heart heavy, but my resolve stronger than ever. Their second betrayal, dismissing my hard work as luck while expecting me to use its fruits to rescue Aubrey, confirmed what I'd always suspected in their eyes. I would never measure up to my sister, no matter what I achieved. 3 weeks after the disastrous dinner with my parents, I was immersed in preparing client year-end reviews when our receptionist called. Hazel, your sister is here to see you. I nearly dropped my pen. Aubrey. Did she have an appointment? No, but she says it's important. Family business. Curiosity overcame my reluctance. I hadn't seen Aubrey since her housewarming party months ago. What could be so urgent that she'd come to my workplace unannounced? Send her back, I decided. Aubrey appeared at my cubicle looking uncharacteristically subdued. Her usual carefully curated appearance, the artfully disheveled hair, the trendy outfit perfect for an impromptu Instagram photo, had been replaced by a simple ponytail and jeans with a sweater. Hi, she said hesitantly. Do you have a few minutes? I glanced at my watch. I have a client call in 20 minutes. What's going on? She shifted uncomfortably, glancing around at the open office layout. Is there somewhere more private we could talk? Reluctantly, I led her to a small conference room and closed the door. "I'm sorry to ambush you at work," Aubrey began once we were seated. "I know you're busy." "It's fine," I said neutrally. "What's this about?" Aubrey took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since Mom and Dad told me about your dinner conversation. I think maybe I've been unfair to you." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by this unexpected opening. "I know they've always favored me," she continued. "I never acknowledged it because, well, it benefited me. But I see now how that must have hurt you." Her apparent sincerity caught me off guard. This was the first time Aubrey had ever acknowledged the family dynamic that had shaped both our lives. "Thank you for saying that," I replied cautiously. "It hasn't been easy." "I want to make things right," she said, leaning forward earnestly. "That's why I'm here. I have a proposition that could help us both." And there it was, the real reason for her visit. "What kind of proposition?" I asked, my guard returning. "A business partnership," Aubrey explained, suddenly animated. "I've been researching financial influencers and there's a huge market there. People want money advice, but from someone relatable, not stuffy banks or intimidating advisors. And you think that's me." I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "It could be us," she corrected. "Your financial expertise combined with my content creation skills and existing audience. We could build something together, a Matthews Sisters brand. Financial advice for millennials, investing, basics for beginners, all presented in an approachable way." I had to admit the concept wasn't terrible. There was indeed a gap in financial education for young adults, and social media could be an effective platform for reaching them. "I've already started working on some content ideas." Aubrey continued, pulling out her phone to show me mock-ups of Instagram posts, combining financial tips with stylish graphics. "I think we could really help people while building something successful." For a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine it a genuine collaboration with my sister, using our different strengths toward a common goal. Maybe this could be the beginning of healing our fractured relationship. "What would this partnership look like practically?" I asked, still cautious but curious. "You'd provide the financial expertise and approve all content for accuracy. I'd handle the creative direction, production, and audience building." Aubrey hesitated before adding, "And, of course, we'd need some startup capital. That's where your investment success could help us get off the ground." And there it was, the real motivation behind her sudden desire for reconciliation. "So this isn't about making things right between us," I said flatly. "This is another attempt to access my money after Mom and Dad failed to convince me." "That's not fair," Aubrey protested. "Yes, I need investment, but this would benefit both of us. You've always wanted recognition for your financial knowledge, right? This would give you a platform." "I already have recognition in my industry," I replied. "I don't need social media validation." Aubrey's expression hardened slightly. "Fine. I was trying to offer an olive branch, but clearly you're determined to hold on to your resentment." "This isn't about resentment," I said, maintaining my composure. "It's about establishing healthy boundaries after years of imbalance." "Boundaries?" Aubrey scoffed. "Is that what your therapist calls it?" "I call it abandoning your family when they need you." "I'm not obligated to fund your career ventures, Aubrey." "That's not abandonment." "Mom and Dad have always been right about you," she said, her voice taking on a familiar, petulant tone. "You only care about yourself and your precious career." "I care about building a sustainable life," I corrected her. "Something you might consider trying instead of constantly seeking bailouts." Aubrey's face flushed with anger. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you? Just because you wear pantsuits and work in a boring office calculating other people's money." "I don't think I'm better than you," I said honestly. "I just think we've made different choices, and we need to live with the consequences of those choices." "Well, here's a consequence for you," Aubrey said, standing up abruptly. "I'm going to tell Mom and Dad exactly how much your precious Joseph Walker investment made you." Beverly told them it was successful, but they don't know the details. I frowned. "How do you know the details?" "I have my sources," she said smugly. "And I know you made enough to easily help your family but chose not to. How do you think they'll feel knowing you helped some stranger get richer while they're struggling with their mortgage?" The threat was clear. She would manipulate our parents' perception of me, even further painting me as selfish and uncaring, while positioning herself as the victim. "Joseph Walker isn't a stranger," I said calmly, though my heart was pounding. "He's a client and business associate who offered me a legitimate investment opportunity based on my professional abilities. That's completely different from funding your Instagram rebrand." They won't see it that way, Aubrey warned. Family is supposed to come first, Hazel. You've never understood that. As she gathered her purse to leave, I realized something profound. Aubrey had never seen me as a sister to be loved, but as a resource to be exploited. In her world, family was indeed first, but only because family had always given her exactly what she wanted. I hope you find success with your rebrand, Aubrey, I said sincerely. But you'll need to do it without my investment. You'll regret this, she said, pausing at the door. When you finally realize money isn't everything and you're all alone with your spreadsheets, you'll wish you had chosen differently. After she left, I sat in the conference room trying to process what had just happened. Aubrey had tried to manipulate me with a false reconciliation, then threatened me when it failed. The sister I had grown up with, shared a room with, had birthday parties and holiday mornings with that person was a stranger to me now. Or perhaps she always had been, and I was only now seeing clearly. What bothered me most wasn't Aubrey's attempted manipulation. I had come to expect that from her. It was the realization that she had somehow learned specific details about my investment with Joseph Walker. That information wasn't public, which meant someone close to me had shared it with her. I had a disturbing feeling. I knew exactly who that someone was, and the thought of yet another betrayal made my stomach twist into knots. The following month brought both professional triumph and personal crisis. James Hopkins called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, his typically serious expression softened by what appeared to be satisfaction. Hazel, the partners have been discussing the junior partnership opening, he began. Your work this past year, particularly your development of the real estate investment advisory niche, has impressed everyone. We'd like to formally consider you for the position. Despite my composed exterior internally, I was elated. This was the recognition I had been working towards since joining the firm. The partnership would mean not just increased compensation, but also equity in the business and a voice in its future direction. Thank you, James, I replied. I'm honored to be considered. There will be a formal interview process with the partnership committee next month, he explained. And we'll need you to present your vision for growing your client segment. Beverly can guide you on what to expect. I left his office feeling a rare sense of professional validation. After years of working twice as hard to get half the recognition, my efforts were finally paying off in a meaningful way. I wanted to share the news with someone who would understand its significance, but realized with a pang that my family, the natural recipients of such news, were the last people I could turn to. Instead, I texted Beverly Partnership Committee next month. Any chance you're free for a celebratory drink? Her response came quickly, absolutely. The Oak Room at 7. The momentary high of professional recognition was shattered 3 hours later when my phone rang with my mother's number. Hazel, she said when I answered, her voice shaking. We need you to come over. It's an emergency. A cold dread washed over me. What's happened? Is everyone okay? Just come to the house, she said before hanging up. I canceled my plans with Beverly and drove to my parents' home, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Had someone been injured? Was there a health crisis? When I arrived, I found the house eerily quiet. The meticulously maintained exterior that had been my father's weekend pride for decades showed signs of neglect, overgrown shrubs, peeling paint around the window, frames a crack in one of the front steps I didn't remember from a last visit. My mother answered the door, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Thank you for coming, she said, leading me into the living room where my father sat slumped in his recliner, looking older than I had ever seen him. What's going on? I asked, alarm growing as I took in their distressed state. We're losing the house, my father said bluntly, not meeting my eyes. What? How? I sat down abruptly on the edge of the sofa. My mother began to cry again. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage payments. The bank sent a foreclosure notice yesterday. I don't understand, I said, struggling to process this information. Dad's practice has always been successful. How could this happen? My father's face crumpled with shame. I've been cutting back my hours at the practice, and the new associates aren't bringing in the same revenue. But mostly, he hesitated, exchanging a look with my mother. We've overextended ourselves helping Aubrey. Where is Aubrey? I asked, suddenly aware of her absence. We don't know, my mother admitted. She's not returning our calls. She left for a content creation retreat in Arizona 2 weeks ago, but the credit card charges are coming from Miami. As the full picture emerged through their halting explanation, I felt a growing sense of disbelief. My parents had taken out not just a second, but a third mortgage on the family home. They had maxed out multiple credit cards, depleted their retirement accounts, and even taken personal loans, all to fund Aubrey's increasingly extravagant business expenses and lifestyle. The influencer business has high startup costs, my mother defended weakly when I questioned the wisdom of their financial decisions. Aubrey needed the right equipment, the right setting, the right wardrobe to attract the big brand partnerships. And did she attract big partnerships, I asked. My father shook his head. There were always reasons why the deals fell through at the last minute. Algorithm changes, competitor undercutting brand budget cuts. I walked around the living room, noting the familiar family photos on the walls, decades of memories contained in this house that was now at risk. For all the pain this place represented in terms of family dynamics, it was still the home where I had grown up, where Christmas mornings and birthday candles and high school graduation photos had marked the passage of time. Let me see the paperwork, I said finally. All of it. Mortgage statements, credit card bills, loan documents, everything. My parents gathered a disorganized pile of papers from my father's home office. As I sorted through them, the true extent of the disaster became clear. They owed nearly $850,000 on a house worth approximately $600 0 inches the current market. Their credit card debt totaled another $120,000 across 7 different cards. The retirement accounts that should have contained decades of savings showed withdrawals of over $350 0 inches the past 3 years alone. I couldn't find words adequate to describe the financial catastrophe before me. We know it's bad, my father said quietly. We kept thinking Aubrey's big break was just around the corner. That once she hit 100,000 followers, everything would change. As I continued reviewing the documents, my mother suddenly clutched her chest and sat down heavily. Mom, I said, alarmed by her sudden pallor. Just need a minute, she gasped, her breathing rapid and shallow. My father rushed to her side while I called 911. The paramedics arrived quickly, determining that she was experiencing an anxiety attack that had triggered symptoms mimicking a heart episode. They recommended a follow-up with her doctor but didn't consider hospital transport necessary once her vitals stabilized. After they left, I made tea in the kitchen where I had grown up watching my mother prepare countless family meals. The familiar surroundings felt surreal against the backdrop of financial ruin. What are we going to do? My mother asked. When I returned with the tea, her voice small and frightened in a way I had never heard before. In that moment, looking at my parents, diminished, vulnerable, and genuinely afraid, I felt my anger give way to a complicated mixture of frustration and compassion. They had made terrible choices, repeatedly prioritizing Aubrey at everyone's expense, including their own. But they were still my parents, and they were in trouble. I'll help with the immediate mortgage payments, I heard myself say, to stop the foreclosure process. But there need to be conditions. Relief flooded their faces quickly, followed by wariness at my mention of conditions. What conditions? My father asked. First, no more financial support for Aubrey. Not a dollar. Second, you both need to see a financial counselor. Third, we need to develop a realistic plan for your retirement that doesn't involve continually refinancing this house. My father started to protest, but my mother placed a restraining hand on his arm. We'll do it, she said. Whatever you think is best. As I drove home that night, the weight of my new commitment settled heavily on my shoulders. The money I had earmarked for a down payment on my own home would now go toward temporarily saving my parents from homelessness. The time I had planned to dedicate to preparing for my partnership interview would be divided with sorting out my parents' financial mess. Most significantly, the emotional boundary I had established between myself and my family's dysfunction had been breached. I was entangled once again in the very dynamics I had fought so hard to escape. When I finally checked my phone, I found 3 missed calls from Beverly and a text message. Everything okay? Call me when you can. I thought about the partnership opportunity, about all I had worked for, about the life I was building for myself. Had I just jeopardized it all by recommitting to a family that had never truly committed to me? For the first time in months, I felt dangerously close to defeat. The morning after discovering my parents' financial crisis, I called Beverly and asked if we could meet for coffee before work. We agreed on a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the office where I arrived early, securing a corner table that offered privacy. Beverly appeared promptly at 7, dressed in her characteristic impeccable style despite the early hour. She assessed my exhausted expression with a single glance. "That bad?" she asked as she slid into the seat across from me. I nodded, then proceeded to outline the situation with my parents' finances and my commitment to help them with the immediate mortgage payments. And Aubrey Beverly inquired, "Where is she in all this?" "Miami, apparently. Living it up on the last of my parents' credit while they face foreclosure." Beverly shook her head in disgust. "Some people never grow up because they're never forced to. The problem is I've committed substantial funds to preventing my parents' foreclosure," I explained. "Funds I had planned to use for my own place. And time I should be dedicating to partnership preparation. You're worried this family crisis will derail your professional advancement," Beverly summarized. "Yes," I admitted. "And I'm angry that once again my sister's irresponsibility is affecting my life. But I couldn't just let my parents lose their home." Beverly considered this for a moment, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "You know, I faced something similar in my early 40s. This surprised me." Beverly had always seemed so perfectly self-contained, her life and career proceeding on an untroubled upward trajectory. "My younger brother, Kevin, had a gambling problem," she revealed. "He ran up debts, borrowed from loan sharks, and eventually showed up at my door with a broken arm, courtesy of his creditors." "What did you do?" I asked, leaning forward. "Initially, I paid his debts, let him stay with me, and tried to fix everything." Beverly smiled ruefully. "Classic eldest daughter syndrome. But after the third time, he cleared out my emergency fund and disappeared. I realized I wasn't helping him by protecting him from consequences." "So you stopped bailing him out?" "Not exactly. I created a two-track approach." Beverly leaned back, her expression thoughtful. "Track 1 focused on my career. I doubled down on my professional commitments, made it clear to my superiors that I was aiming for partnership, and became ruthlessly protective of my work time. Track 2 involved setting strict boundaries with my brother. I would help, but with conditions that required his active participation in recovery." "Did it work?" "Eventually. Kevin relapsed twice more before it stuck. But by keeping these tracks separate, never letting family chaos interfere with professional commitments, I managed to achieve partnership while still being there for my brother in a healthy way." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand briefly. "You can navigate this, Hazel. But you need a strategic approach to both tracks." Beverly's perspective shifted something in my thinking. I had been viewing my commitment to help my parents as an either divided by or proposition, either sacrifice my career advancement or abandon my family. But perhaps there was a middle path. "I think I need to formalize both approaches," I said, pulling out a notebook. "Starting with work." Over the next hour, Beverly and I developed a comprehensive plan. For my professional track, we outlined a schedule that protected key working hours for client, service, and partnership preparation. We identified which of my current responsibilities could be delegated to junior team members, creating space for the additional partnership committee requirements. "You should talk to James about your situation," Beverly suggested. "Not in detail, but enough that he understands you have a temporary family obligation you're managing alongside your professional commitments." "Won't that make me seem less dedicated?" I worried. "On the contrary," Beverly assured me. "It demonstrates maturity and organizational skill. James has adult children with their own challenges. He'll respect your transparency and your planning approach." For the family track, we developed a separate strategy. Instead of simply writing checks to cover my parents' mortgage, I would create a structured financial plan requiring their active participation. "They need to downsize," Beverly stated firmly. "The house is underwater, and maintaining it is draining resources they should be directing toward retirement." "They'll resist that idea," I said. "That house represents their success." "Then they need to decide what's more important, the appearance of success or actual financial stability. You can't force them to make good choices, Hazel. You can only present the options and set boundaries around your involvement." That afternoon, I met with James Hopkins and explained that I was dealing with a family financial situation that would require some of my attention over the coming months. "It won't affect my client service or partnership preparation," I assured him. "I've reorganized my workflow and created contingency plans for any potential conflicts." James seemed impressed rather than concerned. "Family obligations happen to everyone at some point, Hazel. Your approach to managing them speaks well of your organizational skills. Keep me updated if anything changes." With the professional track secured, I turned my attention to developing a comprehensive financial plan for my parents. Working evenings and weekends, I created a detailed analysis of their financial situation, including multiple scenarios for moving forward. The most viable option involved selling the family home, using the proceeds to clear the most pressing debts, and relocating to a more affordable property that they could purchase outright with the remaining equity. This would eliminate their mortgage payment, entirely freeing up cash flow for debt reduction and rebuilding retirement savings. I also drafted a formal financial agreement between us stipulating that my assistance with immediate mortgage payments was contingent on their commitment to implementing the financial plan, including selling the house and severing financial ties with Aubrey. When Joseph Walker called to discuss another potential investment opportunity, I explained my current family situation and my need to temporarily redirect my investment funds. Family complications, he said with understanding. Been there myself. When you're ready to get back in the game, let me know. Good investments will always be available for the right partners. 3 days after my coffee with Beverly, I presented my 2-option plan to my parents. We met at their house, seated around the dining room table where countless family meals had unfolded over the decades. Option 1, I explained, laying out the first document. I provide 3 months of mortgage payments to prevent immediate foreclosure. During that time, you list the house for sale downsized to an appropriate property that you can purchase outright with the remaining equity and implement the debt reduction plan I've outlined. This includes no further financial support for Aubrey and adherence to the monthly budget I've created. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances but remained silent as I continued. Option 2, I said, presenting the second document. You continue on your current path without my assistance. The foreclosure precedes you find rental housing within your current income constraints, and you manage the outstanding debts as best you can. You're forcing us to choose between our home and helping our daughter, my father said, his voice tight with resentment. No, I corrected him. I'm presenting the financial reality and offering assistance with one viable path forward. Continuing to support Aubrey while losing your home and retirement security is not a sustainable option. But what if this is just a rough patch for her, my mother asked. What if her big opportunity is right around the corner? Mom, Aubrey has been having rough patches and big opportunities right around the corner for years, I pointed out gently. Meanwhile, you and Dad are on the verge of financial catastrophe. At some point, Aubrey needs to stand on her own. She's not like you, my mother insisted. She's sensitive, creative. She's 31 years old, I said firmly. And she's perfectly capable of supporting herself if she chooses to. Many creative people hold regular jobs while building their artistic careers. My father studied the financial analysis. I'd prepared his expression growing more somber as he absorbed the reality of their situation. There's no way to keep the house, he asked, finally. Not without winning the lottery, I said, honestly. The mortgage debt exceeds the property value by too much. Even if you stopped all other spending and directed every penny of income toward the mortgages, you'd still fall short each month. My mother began to cry quietly, and my father put his arm around her shoulders. We need time to think about this, he said. I understand, I replied, gathering my papers. But the bank won't wait indefinitely. Neither will the credit card companies, and neither will I. As I prepared to leave, my father walked me to the door. When did you become so formidable? He asked, his tone a mixture of discomfort and reluctant admiration. I've always been this person, Dad, I answered, echoing what I had told my mother at our failed dinner. You just never took the time to notice. Over the following week, I proceeded with both tracks of my plan. At work, I delegated appropriate tasks to junior team members, freeing up time to prepare for the partnership committee presentation. I scheduled strategic meetings with key clients, reinforcing relationships that would support my partnership case. At home, I refined my financial analysis and prepared for either decision my parents might make. If they accepted my help with conditions, I needed to be ready to implement the plan immediately. If they declined, I needed to be emotionally prepared to let them face the consequences of their choices. 9 days after presenting the options, my father called. Your mother and I have talked it over, he said, his voice subdued. We'd like to accept your help with the conditions you outlined. A wave of relief washed over me, followed quickly by the sobering reality of what lay ahead. I'll come over tomorrow evening with the paperwork, I told him. We'll need to act quickly to stop the foreclosure proceedings. As I hung up the phone, I felt a curious mixture of emotions: satisfaction that they had chosen the more responsible path, apprehension about the complex process ahead, and a quiet sense of validation that perhaps for the first time my parents were truly seeing me for who I was. The road forward would not be easy for any of us. But for the first time in our family's history, we would be facing reality together rather than enabling illusions that served only Aubrey. 3 months after my parents agreed to my financial rescue plan, progress was evident on multiple fronts. The immediate foreclosure threat had been averted, and the family home was now listed with a reputable real estate agent. My parents had reluctantly begun the process of sorting through decades of accumulated possessions, preparing for the inevitable downsize. At work, my partnership presentation had been well received, and preliminary feedback suggested the committee was leaning favorably toward my candidacy. The final decision was still weeks away, but James had dropped encouraging hints during our most recent one-on-one meeting. Most significantly, my parents had maintained their commitment to financial independence from Aubrey. Despite her sporadic calls pleading for emergency funds, they had held firm to the boundaries we had established together. My mother still struggled emotionally with these refusals, but my father had begun to exhibit an unexpected resolve, perhaps motivated by the humbling reality of their near financial collapse. Aubrey herself had remained physically absent throughout this period, communicating only through occasional demanding phone calls or manipulative text messages. According to my mother, she had been staying with friends in various locations, though her social media continued to project an image of carefree affluence that stood in stark contrast to her actual circumstances. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday evening, everything changed. I had just arrived home from work when my phone rang with my father's number. "Hazel," he said, "without preamble, Aubrey's here. She showed up about 20 minutes ago. He hesitated. "She's not happy about the house being for sale." "I'll be right over," I replied, already reaching for my car keys. When I arrived at my parents' house, I found a scene of barely contained chaos. Aubrey's expensive luggage occupied the entryway, and I could hear her voice raised in protest from the kitchen. "You can't seriously be considering this," she was saying as I walked in. "This house is our family home. How could you let Hazel talk you into selling it?" My parents sat at the kitchen table looking exhausted and overwhelmed. Aubrey stood over them, her designer outfit and perfect manicure at odds with the fury in her expression. "Hello, Aubrey," I said, calmly setting my purse on the counter. "Welcome back." She whirled to face me, eyes narrowing. Well, well. If it isn't the financial wizard herself, come to check on your handiwork." "I came because Dad called," I replied, maintaining my composure. "He said you were upset about the house." "Upset?" Aubrey laughed bitterly. "Our parents are selling our childhood home because you've convinced them they can't afford it anymore." "Of course I'm upset. They can't afford it anymore," I stated simply. "The numbers don't lie, Aubrey. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with no realistic way to maintain the mortgage payments." "There's always a way," Aubrey insisted. "They just need to be creative." "Refinance again?" "They've already refinanced 3 times," I interrupted. "The house is underwater. They owe more than it's worth. There are no more financial tricks to try. So your solution is to make them sell their home and move into some sad little condo." She turned to our parents. "Mom, Dad, you can't let this happen. I have a new business idea that's going to change everything. I just need a little startup capital." My father shook his head slowly. "No, Aubrey. We've discussed this. We can't provide any more financial support." What Aubrey looked genuinely shocked. "But you've always helped me. You know my creative career needs nurturing. We should have set better boundaries years ago," my mother said, softly surprising me with her insight. "We've enabled behaviors that haven't been healthy for any of us." Aubrey's face flushed with anger. "This is all you're doing," she accused, pointing at me. "You've turned them against me because you've always been jealous of me." "This isn't about jealousy, Aubrey," I said tiredly. "It's about financial reality. Mom and Dad have depleted their retirement savings and maxed out multiple credit cards supporting your creative career. They're in their 60s with virtually no financial security. So you're using their vulnerability to control them," Aubrey countered, "making them choose between helping me and saving themselves." "They shouldn't have to make that choice at all," I replied. "You're 31 years old, Aubrey. You should be financially independent by now, not continually draining our parents' resources." "I notice you had no problem letting Joseph Walker help you with your real estate investment," she said slyly. "Seems like you're fine with financial assistance when it benefits you." The mention of Joseph Walker, a name I had never discussed with her, confirmed my earlier suspicion that someone had shared confidential information about my finances. That was a legitimate business investment, not a handout, I clarified. And how do you know about that anyway? Aubrey smiled, smugly. I have my sources. It was me, my mother admitted quietly. I mentioned it to Aubrey when she called last month. I turned to my mother, stunned by this casual betrayal of my privacy. You discussed my personal financial matters with Aubrey. She was asking about why we were selling the house, my mother explained weakly. I mentioned your successful investment and that we wished we had made similar choices. See, Aubrey pounced. They wish they had invested in me more effectively, not that they hadn't invested at all. That's not what I meant, my mother protested. Isn't it? Aubrey pressed. You've always believed in my potential. You've always known I just needed the right opportunity at the right time. And how many right opportunities have there been over the past decade? I asked. The photography business that failed after 6 months, the jewelry design studio that never produced more than a dozen pieces, the travel blog that consisted of 2 posts before you got bored, the wellness coaching certification you never completed. Those were learning experiences, Aubrey defended. Every successful entrepreneur has failures before finding their true path. And what evidence is there that you've learned anything from these expensive experiences? I challenged. You're still showing up with your hand out, expecting mom and dad to fund whatever new idea you've latched onto. You know what Aubrey said, her voice dangerously quiet. I've had enough of your sanctimonious attitude. Did you know your perfect parents have been lying to you? I frowned. What are you talking about? They've known about my financial issues for years, Aubrey revealed, a cruel smile playing on her lips. They knew I was in trouble with credit card debt back in 2019, and again in 2021. And last year, they bailed me out every time, even when it meant taking money from their retirement accounts. I turned to my parents, who couldn't meet my eyes. Is this true? I asked. My father nodded slowly. We didn't want to worry you. You didn't want to admit you were enabling her destructive behavior, I corrected, anger rising in my chest. They were helping their daughter, Aubrey insisted. That's what loving parents do. Loving parents don't sacrifice their financial security and retirement to repeatedly rescue an adult child who refuses to grow up, I countered. That's not love, it's codependency. Don't you dare psychoanalyze our family, Aubrey shouted. Someone needs to, I shot back. This dynamic has been destroying all of us for years, and everyone's been too afraid to name it. You manipulate mom and dad into giving you whatever you want. They enable your irresponsibility because it's easier than setting boundaries, and I'm expected to pick up the pieces while pretending everything is fine. The kitchen fell silent as my words hung in the air. My parents looked shell-shocked, while Aubrey's expression cycled through anger, hurt, and calculation. Finally, my father spoke, his voice steady for the first time in this conversation. Hazel's right. Dad, Aubrey protested. No, Aubrey, he said firmly. This has gone on long enough. Your mother and I have made terrible financial decisions trying to support your various endeavors. We've jeopardized our retirement and nearly lost our home because we couldn't say no to you. That ends now. My mother reached for his hand, tears streaming down her face, but a newfound resolve in her eyes. We love you, Aubrey. We always will. But we can't continue enabling behaviors that harm all of us. So that's it, Aubrey said, her voice trembling with rage. After everything you're choosing, Hazel over me? This isn't about choosing sides, my father explained. It's about facing reality. We should have done it years ago. I don't believe this, Aubrey muttered, pacing the kitchen. My own family turning against me when I need them most. We're not turning against you, I said, softening my tone. We're refusing to participate in patterns that have prevented you from developing true independence and self-sufficiency. Save your financial advisor platitudes, Aubrey snapped. I don't need a lecture from someone whose idea of success is climbing the corporate ladder and making spreadsheets all day. Actually, you could use exactly that kind of perspective, my father interjected. Hazel has built a life of substance and achievement through hard work and discipline. Those aren't qualities to dismiss, they're qualities to emulate. Aubrey stared at him in disbelief. It was perhaps the first time in our lives that our father had openly acknowledged the value of my approach to life over hers. Fine, she said finally, her voice cold. If that's how you all feel, I know when I'm not wanted. She stormed out of the kitchen toward the entryway where her luggage still Saturday. My parents and I followed, uncertain of her intentions. "Aubrey, please," my mother called. "Don't leave like this. Stay, and we can talk more about how to move forward together." Together, Aubrey laughed harshly as she gathered her bags. "There is no together anymore. You've made your choice. Enjoy your sad little retirement condo and your precious financial security." As she reached for the door, my father asked, "Where will you go?" For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across Aubrey's face before her mask of defiance returned. "I have options," she said vaguely. "Unlike some people, I have actual friends who appreciate my creative spirit." With that parting shot, she walked out, slamming the door behind her. In the silence that followed, my mother began to sob quietly. My father put his arm around her, his own eyes damp with unshed tears. "Did we do the right thing?" my mother asked, looking between my father and me. "Yes," I said gently. "It won't feel like it today or tomorrow, but in the long run, this was the only sustainable path forward." "I just hope she'll be okay," my father murmured. "Aubrey is resourceful," I acknowledged. "And for the first time in her life, she'll need to direct that resourcefulness toward actual self-sufficiency, rather than finding new ways to be supported by others." We moved to the living room emotionally exhausted, but somehow lighter, as if a long, festering wound had finally been lanced. There would be more difficult conversations and painful adjustments ahead, but in this moment it felt like our family had taken its first step toward genuine healing. As we sat together, my father reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For not giving up on us," he replied. "Even when we gave you every reason to." In that moment, I understood that true family love wasn't about enabling or rescuing. It was about having the courage to face difficult truths together, even when those truths were painful to acknowledge. 6 months after the confrontation with Aubrey, I stood in the kitchen of my newly purchased home, arranging a veggie platter for Thanksgiving dinner. Through the archway, I could see my parents setting the dining room table, their movements synchronized after decades of partnership. The past half-year had brought significant changes for all of us. My parents had sold the family home and purchased a comfortable 2-bedroom condominium in a retirement community nearby. The sale had allowed them to clear most of their high-interest debt and establish a modest but secure retirement fund. My father had fully retired from his dental practice, while my mother had discovered an unexpected passion for teaching art classes to fellow retirees. Professionally, I had achieved the partnership I'd worked toward for years. The promotion had come with increased responsibilities but also greater autonomy and a substantial increase in compensation. I had used part of my new salary to purchase this house, nothing ostentatious, but a solid 3-bedroom craftsman with a backyard where I had already planted a small vegetable garden. Aubrey's path had been less straightforward. After storming out that fateful evening, she had maintained radio silence for nearly 2 months. Then, surprisingly, she had resurfaced with a phone call to our parents. "She's taken a job at Nordstrom," my mother had reported, with a mixture of concern and relief. In the cosmetics department, this entry-level retail position represented the first conventional employment of Aubrey's adult life. According to my mother's updates, Aubrey was struggling with the structure and accountability but persevering nonetheless. She had found an affordable apartment with 2 roommates and was learning to budget her income to cover basic expenses. When I extended the Thanksgiving invitation to include Aubrey, I had been uncertain whether she would accept. Our relationship remained strained communication, limited to occasional text messages that were civil but distant. To my surprise, she had agreed to come, though she had warned she would need to leave early for her evening shift at the store. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. My mother hurried to answer it, revealing Aubrey standing on the porch with a store-bought pumpkin pie in her hands. "Happy Thanksgiving," she said somewhat awkwardly, as she stepped inside. My mother embraced her warmly, while my father offered a more reserved but genuine greeting. I noticed immediately that Aubrey looked different. Her clothing was simpler, her makeup more subdued, her entire presentation less calculated for social media documentation. "Nice place," she commented, glancing around as she followed me to the kitchen. "Congratulations on the partnership," Mom told me. "Thank you," I replied, surprised by her acknowledgement. "And congratulations on the Nordstrom position. How's it going?" Aubrey shrugged, setting the pie on the counter. "It's a job. The discount is good, and some of the customers are interesting. My manager's kind of a nightmare, though. Retail during holiday season is challenging. I offered, searching for neutral common ground. I worked at a bookstore through college. The Christmas rush was intense. Yeah, Black Friday is coming up, Aubrey grimaced. I'm working a 12-hour shift. We continued with cautious small talk as we finished preparing the meal. The conversation over dinner remained similarly guarded, focusing on safe topics like my parents' new neighborhood, a movie Aubrey had recently seen, and my vegetable gardening attempts. As we cleared the plates before dessert, my father surprised us all by raising his water glass. I'd like to propose a toast, he said, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. To new beginnings and hard-earned wisdom. We all raised our glasses, the simple gesture, somehow acknowledging the complex journey that had brought us to this table. Later, as Aubrey prepared to leave for her shift, I walked her to the door. Thanks for coming, I said sincerely. It meant a lot to Mom and Dad. Aubrey nodded, then hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. How did you do it? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Build all this for yourself, I mean. Without help. The question caught me off guard. It was perhaps the first time Aubrey had expressed interest in my path rather than resentment toward it. One step at a time, I answered honestly, with a lot of mistakes along the way, but mainly by accepting that no one else was responsible for my success or failure. That was both terrifying and liberating. Aubrey considered this for a moment. I'm starting to understand that, she said quietly. It's harder than I thought. It is, I agreed. But it gets easier with practice. Does it? She asked skeptically. The challenges keep coming, I clarified. But your capacity to handle them grows. At least that's been my experience. An awkward silence fell between us, years of resentment and misunderstanding too substantial to be bridged in a single conversation. I should go, Aubrey said finally. Can't be late for the evening makeup rush. Drive safely, I offered. After Aubrey left, I rejoined my parents in the living room where they were comfortably settled on the couch. That went better than I expected, my father commented. She's trying, my mother added, hopefully. The job, the apartment with roommates, these are big adjustments for her. They're normal adult responsibilities, I pointed out gently. But yes, I'm glad she's taking these steps. My mother reached over and took my hand. I owe you an apology, Hazel. Many apologies, actually. For what specifically, I asked, not unkindly. For not seeing you, she said, her eyes filling with tears. For years, we focused so much on Aubrey's needs that we never properly acknowledged your accomplishments or supported your dreams. We took your strength for granted, my father added, and punished you for your independence by withholding the recognition you deserved. Their words soothed a wound so old I had almost stopped noticing its ache. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It matters even now. We're proud of you, Hazel, my father said firmly. Not just for saving our retirement or helping us face reality, though we're grateful for that too. We're proud of the woman you've become, accomplished, compassionate, and principled. You deserve this success, my mother added, gesturing to encompass my new home and all it represented. All of it. Those 4 words, you deserve this success, stood in stark contrast to the your sister deserves it, that had precipitated our family reckoning nearly a year ago. The symmetry wasn't lost on any of us. Later that evening, after my parents had gone home, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The day's conversations replayed in my mind, the cautious reconnection with Aubrey, the heartfelt acknowledgement from my parents, the sense that our family was slowly healing into a healthier configuration. The path forward remained uncertain. Aubrey's newfound independence was fragile, my parents' financial recovery ongoing, and our family relationships still tender with old hurts. Yet for the first time I felt hopeful that we might build connections based on mutual respect rather than dysfunctional patterns. Family healing, I reflected, isn't about erasing the past or pretending wounds never existed. It's about acknowledging those wounds, honestly setting boundaries that protect against further damage, and creating space for new, healthier interactions to emerge. As darkness fell, I thought about the many people watching this video who might be struggling with similar family dynamics, the golden child and the scapegoat, the enabler and the enabled, the complex web of expectations and resentments that can define family systems. If you've connected with my story, I hope it offers some validation and encouragement. Changing entrenched family patterns is among the hardest work we can undertake, but it's also among the most important. You deserve to be seen valued and respected for who you are, not merely for what you can provide or how well you fulfill assigned family roles. Have you experienced similar dynamics in your family? How did you navigate them? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more content about family relationships and personal growth, and share with anyone who might benefit from knowing they're not alone in these struggles. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And remember, creating healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for genuine love to flourish.